Hey Starseeds, welcome to Starseed Energetics. My name is Ashtara, mission to bring you some of the highest frequency content throughout these evolutionary cycles. And today I have your February reading. And before I begin, I would like to really thank my Patreons who support my work and enable me to really exist on all of these platforms. So if you enjoy my transmissions, please check out my Patreon. I share a lot of value there, a lot of exclusive readings and exclusive activations that you will not find elsewhere. And before we begin, I would like to remind you that this is a frequency transmission above anything else, above anything that you can see, hear, and listen to. It's energy and helping you generate certain frequencies while I explain things on a rational level. So taking full deep breaths is crucial throughout the whole transmission. And before I start the reading, I would like to invite you to tune into your heart space, tune into your groundedness, to Mother Nature and the Earth, the crystalline cores of all the planets that you're relevant to, personal guides, whatever level of universal intelligence that you resonate with, and your source field. And I intend to bring you the highest possible messages that's going to help you as a collective grid at this moment in evolution. And I've already shuffled and pulled out the central theme card, which is the Earth Warriors Oracle. And the central theme that came out for you was Sage of Higher Knowledge and Amuata. So with this card, what I want to share with you, and when I'm reading these cards, I hope that you know that I usually just use the card as in a reference point to bring you my own level of messages. Like most of the card readings that I do is not read from the guidebook or the traditional meanings. I would say like 80% of it is my own messages that I'm using in conjunction with these co-creative tools. So this is nudging me to share with you about what it means to be claircognizant. So psychic abilities is something that is obviously a beautiful gift to all of humanity, and everybody has access to this beautiful gift. But things like clairvoyance and clairaudience is quite overrated and sensationalized beyond what it actually is. And of course, these are abilities that everybody has. Everybody has the capacity to their own degree and depending on their soul mission to be able to kind of tune into other spectrums of light and sound. But more important and more common to everybody who don't necessarily value this trait is their ability to tune into their inner knowing, which is claircognizance. And at a certain level of trust and empowerment, you'd be able to just read information out of nowhere, and just know things and just basically download messages, which the term download is highly misperceived as well, and kind of tossed around like it's some kind of like a word that represents inspiration, a word that represents like a passing thought. But downloads are very sacred interaction with higher levels of your intelligence. And part of what people dismiss, because what humans are able to do are magical from the first place, it doesn't make it any more magical that some people have the capacity to tune into higher spectrums of color or be able to hear different realms. Like, of course, that's really special, but most people don't realize how magnificent and authentic as a species we are, that we're able to do some of the things that people think are just normal things. And so an example that I would like to share is basically, aside from the fact that everything just appears to you as concrete reality and you're able to synthesize different symbols in your life, such as like you're able to interact with this video and you're synthesizing basically like thousands of levels of abstraction in pattern recognition, and you think that you're this one identity and you think I'm this one identity, and you're watching like YouTube, which is one kind of level of synthesis, and then you're watching this video and you think it's like a monthly reading, but actually that is just billions of levels of fractal information that you're just clearly making sense of it as some kind of story, which has its downsides, but also that's like crazy. And so tuning into how extraordinary it is that you're able to do a lot of the things that you're currently doing, actually that's a key to unlock a lot of your other gifts as well, to be aware of what it's like to be yourself. But part of the thing that a lot of people dismiss is their ability to tune into their field of research. So research and maybe even like reading a book is, some people think it's like just quite a normal thing, and like it's not a magnificent gift that you're able to research and read and hear information from different sources. Apparently that's like very mundane, but it's actually so magical, and depending on from which frequency you're tuning into, it takes a lot of co-creative power to hold an intention to find the truth about something, and then be able to attract the levels of truth that is resonant with your frequency, that is resonant with your inner knowing. And not only that, to be able to consume the content and be able to discern which fractals of frequency from this bandwidth of information is completely resonate with my inner knowing, which your inner knowing and your state of inner knowing is a certain bandwidth of frequency depending on your level of soul expression. And then you basically, what you got to do is, out of the content that you're consuming, discern which part of it completely feels true. And those things are psychic powers, but just very intricate. And of course, not everyone is going to be making it so magical. It depends on you. Like if somebody were to cook food, they can just make something and it's just like mediocre food, versus if somebody is really high frequency doing what they love and gathering the ingredients that they love and all of that, it's like a complete art, like a culinary art. And so it's almost like saying cooking is not an art. I mean, what do you mean? It depends on who's making it with what intention. And so for you who's tuning in, just want to remind you that it's actually like a very powerful ability for you to be able to attract the right information, attract the right frequencies, and be able to discern from that, literally like just resonate and basically invite into your field from that bandwidth of content what is resonant for you, because what you only be able to do that if you have crystallized and solidified a level of your inner knowing that is super authentic and clear and without much intrusion. So on this level, you'd basically be able to attract multiple facets of information surrounding an aspect of your life that you want to get deeply in touch with the truth of something, and then be able to attract the right teachers, attract the right books, attract the right musical frequency that would correspond to everything that you're doing, attract the right like toolkits, all simultaneously at once, basically. And this is something that I want to bring into your awareness so you can be more aware that this is a superpower so that you can amplify it. And even just the fact that people watch my content, and a lot of people are kind of, number one, a lot of people don't really understand why collective readings like this work. Why does energy readings like this resonate as if it's a personal reading? And also, why is it that it sounds like I'm talking directly to you? Well, yeah, it's part of my co-creation is to be able to serve a very resonant bandwidth of people. I'm not very interested in reaching the masses. I'd rather reach a deeper bandwidth of people who completely resonate than, like, for instance, like reach a bunch of people who are not really in touch with their inner reality to the level that you guys are, perhaps. And so, yeah, part of it is my co-creation, and part of it is like, yes, I choose the perfect decks. I set myself up, I set my energy up. It's like a constant way of life that I cultivate in order to be able to create clear transmissions like this. It's not just about me sitting down and deciding to record a video. It's everything that's led up to this point. What have I been doing for the past week? What have I been doing for the past month? What have I been doing for the past year? What have I been learning? It's like everything accumulates so that I can be able to channel, and when I say channel, I mean just transmit information in this kind of way that is in alignment with whoever's tuning into the collective. But then it's also your co-creation that you were able to find my channel, that you're able to hold the right intentions to get the right information and be able to discern this reading and apply it to the right facets of your life. It's actually like you doing part of the creational work. So just bringing that up before I get into the next deck. So the next cards that I'll use is the Life Purpose deck. And this is like, I don't know if you're aware that Doreen Virtue stopped making oracle decks. Like, they are out of print, and her decks are one of my favorites. There's no oracle deck maker that can do what she did, but at some point her energetic field was like intruded with something, and now she stopped making decks. I mean, she stopped publishing them. So you have nutrition, writing, and support. Actually, it's so interesting that I mentioned cooking, and this nutrition card came up before. So what I was gonna say is, like, actually this is not her original deck. It's somebody who like recreated her deck, so it's the same deck. But yeah, I really wish I can buy her decks still. But now if you try to buy them, they're like $100 because it's out of print, and people are like whoever bought them before are raising the price. Yoga, environmentalist, family, body work, strength. This is so interesting. So I don't know if like I have one of my personal like coaching clients who got this exact sequence, and I don't know if you're watching this, like you saw me shuffle, so I guess this is a double message. This is nutrition and family, and this talks about tuning into the nutrition that is of the refined frequency for your state of being. There's no one right way to eat, and it's really beneficial to experiment with a lot of different dietary restrictions at a certain point in your life, which I've personally done many times. I've tried everything from omnivore, which is like eating everything. I've tried vegan, I tried raw vegan, I tried ketosis, which would mean the opposite end of the spectrum, which is like mostly meat. I never did like carnivore diet, but I understand like there's a lot of people who do that. I have nothing against any of these diets, I think. And then I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting, and then I'm a huge fan of not following any of the rules. But then get to a certain level, and it's really beneficial to explore all of those things, but you get to a certain level where you realize different phases and cycles of your evolution is supported by different dietary restrictions or preferences. And I think it's so awesome to experiment with all these restrictions, but I personally, in my own perspective, don't think it's healthy to have the same set of restrictions for an extended period of time, like for years and years, because nutrition is information, and it's basically like you're restricting yourself and you're bypassing, and you are not doing the shadow work when it comes to integrating different information that you allow into your body. I mean, of course, if you are living in a certain set of circumstances where it allows you to always be tuning into the highest frequencies of reality, I think it's fine to just be a breatharian, honestly. But we're, at least me currently, I am taking part in various different morphogenetic grids, part of which is the collective grid of the human emotions, the collective grid of the human mental field, and to pretend like some shadowy aspects of this collective is not there, and completely bypass or like rejecting certain information, whether it's nutritional or whether it's informational, I don't think is the most viable thing. And there's no food, as long as it comes from holistic sources, there's no food that doesn't have pros and cons. So even if you're like, whatever your diet that you're on, you think is like the best, it has pros and cons. And the best way to really balance all of it out, in my personal opinion, is to cycle in and out of different series of pros and cons. Because just focusing on one aspect is not conducive to, sometimes maybe you need to ground more, sometimes maybe you need to get light more. And of course, I completely support going for the highest frequency option possible when it comes to organic things and high frequency prepared food, like when people make it with love and people make it with care, all of that. But for instance, if you bypass animal products or completely reject animal products completely because you don't want to get involved with this cycle of death and this frequency of dominance or even violence, you're holding a lot of judgment for what it means to, first of all, die. Like, why is it so negative to die? And I agree completely that there needs to be way higher frequencies to do that. But the truth of it is, it only reflects the state of consciousness of humanity. So actually, the problem really isn't the food, or the problem really isn't about the animals, but it's more about how humanity is vibrating, the consciousness. So at the end of the day, it's actually about consciousness refinement, and the actually more efficient way to deal with that problem through food is not to judge any of it, because that will naturally elevate your state of consciousness and your perspective to a non-judgmental state, which is of a higher vibration, and you're contributing by looking at and perceiving things from a non-attached, more objective perspective. So that's one level. And just experimenting with what works best for you. And when it comes to family, it's also being able to learn what's best for you is not best for other people in your family, whether that's genetic family or soul family. Just like witnessing and weighing out the different options and balancing this out for yourself, and like learning more how you can support your own evolution. And what I tend to say, like, often when it comes to diet, and I know that people might get upset about me talking about food like this, because some people just really don't agree with like animal products, and I completely get it. Like, I get it, but that's the state of humanity right now. Look at like the media, look at everything else. The state of everything else is like, that's how it is, guys. Like, it's not just about the food. Like, and so the best thing we can do is just kind of have compassion for the level at which the collective is vibrating, and just try to hold a neutral perspective on, this is the level at which the collective is vibrating, and then, you know, make your decisions from there. And eventually, when the collective frequency is vibrating at a higher level, we won't have food that is like that. But if you even look at synthetic food, right, like even like highly processed food, it's just the same kind of idea as how distorted are animal products. I mean, if you look at like pasta, it's like so processed. Like, they take the grain and then they make something completely distorted out of it. That's what's happening with all the other food as well. And sugar, like if you take a sugar cane, I believe it's not unhealthy, but then they take it and they make refined sugar, and it's literally like poison. Same goes for like cocaine. It's on its natural form, it's a healing medicine, but they take the coke plant and then they make this really toxic drug out of it. Like, that's basically the state of this informational and nutritional field. So just really learning what makes your body feel. And so that just means that whatever you are drawn to eat, and be completely open to whatever it is that you're drawn to eat for the day. Like, be prepared for your body to suggest eating something completely different than what you think you should be eating or consuming. Even if it means, like, for some people, you like all of a sudden feel like going and smoking cigarettes, rationally know that's like the worst thing you can do. But let me tell you, like, for some people, that level of judgment that you hold against that practice, which you might actually have an anchor to your ancestors, why you're even like have so much judgment against it. Maybe some of your ancestors really were smoking a lot, or like, I mean, like when I say ancestors, maybe it's even your parents or your grandparents. And if it's in your genetic field and you're completely bypassing that has been programmed into you from your family or that from society in general, and you're judging it so hard, you might actually be initiated to actually go through it and have an experience of it until you drop the judgment, and then you'll be completely freed of it. And this might happen with some of the other habits that you completely bypassed or rejected. And actually rejecting something is actually a very high frequency way to work through. So actually, I would say ignore or bypass. Actually rejecting something is one of the best ways you can work through things that you no longer want to vibrate in your field. This is a whole different topic, but it's a very precise difference between rejecting and bypassing or ignoring. So actually, the more toxic thing is an attitude of judgment towards anything that you do at all. So this layer of judgment about that action is actually way worse than however bad you think an action might be. And so this might be something that you have to work through this month. And final cards that I will pull for you is the Psychic Tarot. I'm just gonna try to pull a few cards because already this video is long. Okay, so one message that I'm getting very clearly for some people is like, this is exactly what I meant, emotional withdrawal. This is exactly the energy of ignoring and bypassing something because you're judging it so hard. And you will have to just clear that. Like, withdrawal is not the same as like clear discernment. It's not. And a lot of people on a spiritual path, they will go through a deep cycle of completely rejecting like an innate nature that they were born with or that they cultivated. And instead of working through it with clarity, and instead of working through it by strengthening the essence of who they are, which naturally the things that you don't want anymore will just fall away, they go at it from a place of like judging the parts of themselves that they don't want to deal with. And that's kind of like, it'll get you to a certain level along the path, but it's not going to take you to the next level where you need to go. So you may need to work around those things. And the other message that I have for you is, for some people, you really need to get comfortable with the idea that you're going to need to start executing some things before you feel ready. And this is more of like a personal development advice, is like, whatever you feel like the task that you need to do, or the role that you want to step into, get used to starting it before you feel like you're completely ready. Getting in alignment with feeling ready is just a matter of choice. Like, you don't have to feel ready to decide that you're going to feel ready. So some people had to hear that from me. Then you have Destiny. Then you have Heart Chakra. Wow. So for a lot of people, this emotional withdrawal pertains to completely opening your heart to let in a lot of people who are meant to enter into your life. And you'll be walking into situationships, relationships, partnerships, alliances that you're not ready for, that level of intensity or that level of soul connection, that level of authenticity and vulnerability that these relationships are going to bring forth. And you feel like you're not ready, but get ready, like now. I mean, choose to feel ready and be okay with the fact that when you start things, you're not going to feel ready. If people will just wait for the moment that they feel ready, not going to really happen for most people. So really, like a heart opening month. It's just all the imagery around here, you know, it's like emotional withdrawal, heart chakra, and then in the middle is like this lady with this green coming out of her heart. And kind of like this really talks about integrating all of the different personas within you, all these internal sub-personalities within that may have been conflict with one another. You're making peace with all these different facets of you, and that actually opens you up to connect with people on a very deep level. Because if you're the kind of person who judges people for this and that, or like just really have a heavy discernment on people, it may be because you're too judgmental about yourself, all these facets of yourself. And so when you start to open up to this different facets of you and realize that it's a gift actually, and honestly, one of the best ways that you can work with different archetypes within you and the sub-personalities within you, to be able to really integrate that as a whole united field of being, is to come up with benefits of having that shadow archetype. There's always bright sides to it. So for example, if you have a shadow archetype that is like super shy and you're afraid to be seen, then the benefits of that is that, first of all, on a certain level, when you learn to balance it, it will help you discern strong boundaries. If that didn't exist, then it'd be difficult for you to develop strong boundaries. And then the other part of it is that it means that you're very sensitive. So the sensitivity gives you a lot of gifts, like being empathic, being more open to subtle dimensions. So identify like 3 to 5 core strengths that come with a facet of yourself that you find is difficult to accept. If you're really harsh on yourself, and I know this is like, in a drastic example, but if you're harsh on yourself, at least when you learn to balance it, you'll constantly have a motivation to evolve more. And obviously you have to balance that. But if that didn't exist, then you'd probably just be content staying stagnant. So you have to figure out, when I transfigure that, and when I really accept this, and when I learn to balance this archetype by developing the complementary archetype, which would balance the shadow archetype, what gifts does this bring me? And that'll kind of really help you open up. And then you can also do that with other people. If you find that, for instance, if you have a challenge with somebody because they're, for instance, way too strict or way too like rational, then you can just really tune into, what benefits does this bring to me because we have this relationship together? Like maybe they just bring you perspectives that you don't have because maybe you're not so logically driven. And so when somebody gives you those perspectives, even if you might have challenges, like accepting that fully, it's like you can take 20% of what they're saying and then use it in some way to benefit your perspective. Okay, next we have material, spiritual prosperity, victory and success, shadow. Look at that. All of these affirm everything that I'm saying. And so, yeah, it's basically like all your shadow archetypes like uniting into one field and learning to operate from that field of unity where you are not so identified with these different fractals or fractures of yourself, but you're more so operating from a higher dimensional grid of who you are. If you look at it, there's like sacred geometry in the back. So instead of like identifying as like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, sometimes I'm this, it's like you start to operate from this united grid of your sense of identity, which like tends to expand. And then this actually, by the end of this month, most people, obviously not everyone, will achieve complete like fulfilling channel of success, victory, and also like prosperity comes up. These are just really sweet cards to get in a row with all of this. And 6 is repeated twice. So I would think that this is the month throughout February that you start this, and actually the peak moment where things start to accelerate a lot will actually be in June of this year. Okay. Just the last 2 cards are new beginnings and conflict and defeat. So by now, it's like you carry literally like energetic memories of conflict and defeat. This is the path that you've been walking so far, which is why you were so emotionally withdrawn. And this comes up a lot in people's energy, is like you have this memory of like really working towards something, and then it completely defeats you, and it kind of creates this huge fear of failure. and you withdraw from like this possibility and potentials that lay ahead of you. But you cannot compare your past frequency to the present frequency. Everything is different. Every moment is different. You're on a completely different level. And if you look at this like complete new beginning, so you're really like shedding a lot of density when it comes to your like feeling completely defeated. I'm sorry, my battery just ran out, so I don't know where I left off the reading, but basically I'm just gonna move on. So the peak of the success and the material prosperity that you are basically calling in this month, that will begin this month, but it's going to start accelerating a lot and taking a life of its own by June. This is a really profound time where you are completely shedding like a huge density of your energetic field when it comes to feeling defeated, feeling in conflict with your outer reality, feeling like everything is out of your control, and like having emotional withdrawal from like the passion that you feel about your projects, passion that you feel about life. I just want to end this reading by saying, if you are in complete alignment with your soul, it's completely impossible not to thrive. That's it. So when the past, if you tried some things and it didn't really work, it's because it was like a somewhat aligned but not completely. And as you've refined your frequency, as you refined your alignment, you're not going to have to worry about feeling defeated or conflict from the environment, because the conflict that you felt was just internally, because at a deep level, you know your true alignment, which is what I said in the beginning. There's a frequency of inner knowing, there's a frequency of inner alignment, and if you're radiating outside of that, there's going to be an inner conflict, no matter how passionate you are about a project or how hard you try to strive towards the success of something. The inner conflict that you have with this innate knowing of what you're really meant to be doing, what frequency are you supposed to be targeting, what frequency are you supposed to be vibrating, when you come into complete surrender to that authenticity and completely trust that that is the true path for you, because a lot of people don't trust that their unique soul essence or frequency is somehow not enough. Like, that's just, as strange as that sounds, some people just don't have that inherent self-worth, and the only reason for that is because they don't really know the depth of what their self is. If you really knew what self meant on a metaphysical level, you'll never feel like that. Or you'll never have that kind of mistrust that whatever you have is not enough, or that you have to do something to be of service or be successful. If you just knew what you are at the core essence of your existence, I would just end it off by saying, whatever you do on a human level, it's literally like the surface crust of what you're doing on all other levels of your existence. It's just like you're just allowing it to have its experience, but don't be fooled by that, and understand that your awareness can stretch whenever you're ready deep into the core of who you are. Okay, so if you enjoy these transmissions, please check out my Patreon. I have a lot of more in-depth energy work and sessions over there. And just want to wish you the best month up ahead. Thank you so much for everyone who's new to this channel. I'm so grateful to be able to share these messages and resonate with this such a high frequency network of souls. And I will see you next month. Bye.